In June 1314, a small kingdom walks to the edge of extinction. 6,000 Scots, farmers, footmen, sons of stone and soil, stand between empire and erasure. Across the horizon, 20,000 English banners shimmer like a tide of iron, rolling toward the castle of Stirling, the last key that holds Scotland's heart. This isn't a battle for land, it's a verdict on whether Scotland deserves to exist at all. What saves them isn't divine favor, it isn't luck. It's a man, a king who learns to make the ground itself fight for him. Stay here, in this narrow valley, a stream that strangles movement, a marsh that drinks horses, and a wall of wooden pikes that will turn the finest knights in Europe into a tangle of steel and mud. Because on this field, pride turns to panic, and a people long treated as subjects will become a nation. This is how one man, Robert the Bruce, rewrote warfare, rebuilt a country, and proved that patience, precision, and preparation can defeat power and privilege. What happened at Bannockburn wasn't just a victory, it was a rebirth. And it started with a single question. How do you fight an empire that doesn't know how to lose? You start by stripping the word empire down to its moving parts. Empire isn't just soldiers. It's tax and law and iron. It's the web of castles and garrisons that choke every bridge and tollgate from Berwick to Perth. A lattice of control that keeps Scotland half subdued, half starved. At the hinge of this control sits Stirling Castle, the gateway between north and south. Hold Stirling, and you hold the road to the Highlands. Lose it, and England's grip starts to slip. That's why both armies march here. Stirling isn't just stone, it's the lever that can lift or crush a nation. England's king, Edward II, inherits a war machine built by his father, Edward I, called the Hammer of the Scots. But the son lacks the father's edge. The machine still moves, but its rhythm falters. Orders spread thin. Pride replaces discipline. And in those cracks, Bruce finds air to breathe. Look south of the River Forth and you see the English host. Banners thick as mist, armor gleaming like a second dawn. Columns of cavalry stretch for miles. Supply trains grind forward, wagons heavy with fodder, barrels, and siege tools. To the watching villagers, it looks like a moving city of war, the kind that burns fields just by passing. And yet the mood among Edward's nobles isn't grim determination. It's sport. They expect a ride and a rout, a clean sweep of peasants before dinner, a campaign for songs and silver. They don't plan for a field that says no. English doctrine is built for spectacle. Heavy cavalry, knights on massive war horses, break lines with shock and weight. Behind them, longbowmen clear the path, their arrows darkening the air in waves. It's a formula that has crushed rebellions from Wales to Gascony. But formulas fail when the ground refuses to cooperate. Think of it like a heavyweight forced into an alley. Strength without space is just weight, and weight, trapped in mud, becomes its own enemy. Already, before a single arrow flies, the cracks appear. Commanders argue over who leads the vanguard, the frontmost line of knights. Disputes like that sound small, but they ripple through an army. If the front doesn't know who's in charge, the rear won't know when to move. Friction spreads faster than orders. Here lies the difference. England trusts in numbers, men, horses, banners. Bruce trusts in geometry, the angles of rivers, ridges, and roads. He doesn't need to kill every knight. He just needs to make the land do the killing for him. By the time Edward's army nears Stirling, the fight is already half decided. This won't be chivalry's grand theatre. It's empire versus environment, steel versus soil. And soon, the field itself will choose a side. To understand how that happens, how ground learns to kill, you have to meet the man who trained it.
Robert the Bruce wasn't born cautious. He earned it, in exile, failure, and flight. To understand why he refuses the kind of grand battle his enemy craves, you have to walk through the years when Scotland's crown was a burden, not a prize, when every hill was a refuge, and every mistake meant capture. After his coronation in 1306, Bruce's world shrank to caves, bogs, and broken roads. He fought not for glory, but for time, striking small, vanishing fast, keeping his army alive through winters and hunger. Castles he couldn't hold, he tore down stone by stone, denying shelter to the enemy. His war became one of attrition, not ceremony. He'd let England's supply lines stretch and starve themselves long before facing them head-on. Every decision was weight against risk. He carried excommunication from the church, a king branded outside God's grace. He faced rival clans who questioned his crown, and English garrisons that dotted the map like scars. So he learned to trade space for survival, to move through woods and marshes where cavalry drowned in mud, to make the landscape itself a weapon. Preparation, in Bruce's hands, looked humble. No parades, no gilded armor. Just men who knew their ground like craftsmen. Scouts mapping firm soil, officers drilling signals and pivots, cooks traveling light so the army could shift on a whisper. Discipline replaced spectacle. Method replaced might. Every hill, every ford, every patch of bog became a line in his plan. Over time, his men became more than survivors. They became a system. When Bruce gave an order, hold, turn, advance 3 paces, they moved like a single body. The king didn't build an army to fight a charge. He built one to outlast it. By the summer of 1314, the stage was set. Stirling's siege had drawn the English north, and the terms of its surrender fixed the date. Bruce didn't need a miracle. He needed a field. And he found it beside a narrow stream called the Bannockburn, soft underfoot, hemmed by woods, and tight enough to choke the charge that England called unbeatable. So he commits, not to glory, but to control. Every pit dug, every spear drilled, every path marked, turns the earth into a trap. The field leans his way. The ground is ready to kill. How do you make mud sharper than steel? You turn a stream into a blade. The Bannockburn, the small stream that gives the battle its name, doesn't look like much. A thin ribbon of water running through soft, marshy ground just south of Stirling Castle. But to an army that depends on movement, it's poison. Its banks sag under weight, its fords are few, and the soil drinks rain until even a horse sinks by inches. To the east lies open farmland. To the west, a thicket known as the New Park, a royal hunting preserve of tight woods and uneven slopes. And beyond that rise Coxet Hill and Gillies Hill, ridges that loom like watchtowers over the field. Together, they form a natural funnel, a trap that looks like open country from afar, and a chokehold once you step into it. Edward's massive army needs space, long level ground for the shock of cavalry charges, and wide sightlines for longbowmen to rain death from a distance. But Bannockburn offers none of that. It's a maze disguised as a meadow. Bruce sees that and begins his work. He doesn't build walls or towers. He teaches the ground where to bite. His men move out ahead of the English march, small teams with shovels, mallets, and stakes. They dig pitfalls, just deep enough to break a horse's stride, and line them with sharpened stakes. Then they cover the traps with brush and turf, invisible until the moment a charge commits.
Elsewhere, they scatter caltrops, four-pointed iron spikes designed so one edge always points upward. A simple weapon, but deadly to horses and barefoot men alike. Dropped in clusters, they turn flat ground into a minefield. Each of these tools, pits, stakes, caltrops, feeds a single design: to steal speed. Because cavalry depends on momentum. A knight's charge isn't about the sword, it's about the impact. Take away speed, and even a mounted noble becomes just a man in heavy armor, stuck in the mud. That's the quiet arithmetic of this battlefield. The burn slows the first ranks, the pits trip the next. The bogs suck at hooves and pull lines inward. What begins as a wall of lances becomes a tangle of falling weight. Imagine the sound. Horses snorting, slipping, riders cursing, shields scraping, arrows whistling without clear aim. Every foot forward costs breath and shape. The front slows, the rear presses. The army folds in on itself, long before the Scots ever strike. Even the English archers, their most feared weapon, find no clear field to shoot across. Their bows need lanes of sight, long open space to arc volleys over friendly ranks. But here, the woods, banks and ridges break every line of vision. They can't lose without hitting their own. From Coxet Hill, you'd see the English host swelling into the choke like a flood meeting rock. From Gillies Hill, you'd watch the rear compress, banners bending inward as ranks bunch and stumble. The very size of the army becomes its weakness. The bigger it moves, the harder the ground bites back. So before a single arrow flies, the field has already taken a side. The English come to Bannockburn believing the land will carry them. Bruce makes it their executioner. But mud alone doesn't win a war. It needs a wall that can walk.
What looks like a thicket of spears yet moves like a tide. That's the Shiltron, the Scottish formation that turned farmers into fortress walls. A Shiltron, from the old Scots word for shield troop, is a dense block of infantry, usually several hundred men wide and deep, each armed with a long spear or pike. Earlier versions of it had stood passively, waiting for cavalry to impale itself and break. But under Bruce, it evolves. He doesn't make it a wall that waits. He makes it a machine that moves. Each man stands shoulder to shoulder, the front ranks kneeling, spears angled out, the rear ranks bracing and feeding shafts forward. It looks slow, even clumsy, but every gap is planned. Every man knows the rhythm: plant, brace, thrust, step. It's not heroics, it's choreography. Fear in this formation is managed by cadence. The beat of feet and breath replaces the chaos of panic. When one man falls, another steps forward into his place without a word. Courage fills the gaps, but discipline keeps them closed. Bruce's captains make this doctrine muscle deep. His nephew, Thomas Randolph, trains his division to pivot in tight arcs, turning flanks into faces when cavalry tries to sweep the side. His brother Edward Bruce drills men to advance in short, measured strides, small steps that keep the pikes from tangling. To the English, these blocks looked like hedgehogs of steel. But to the Scots, they feel like engines, heavy, alive and sure. Picture it, from a distance, a square of men bristling with 12-foot pikes, sunlight flashing on iron tips. It doesn't run, it grinds, forward, steady, unstoppable. Every pause redresses the line. Every step forward tightens the vice. Older armies thought such formations could only hold ground. Bruce makes them take it. He trains them not just to resist a charge, but to advance into it, forcing knights backward, step by step,
until horses panic and turn. It's the birth of modern infantry discipline, centuries before the word infantry meant what it does today. The English knights expect fear to open gaps, but fear has no room here. Every man in the schiltron knows he fights for the ground beneath his boots, and that if he breaks, the earth will not forgive him. By the eve of battle, Bruce has 4 such divisions ready. Each knows its role, its direction, its captain's signal. The plan is simple. Absorb the first shock, then press. Slow, steady, deliberate, until the enemy's weight crushes itself. It's patience turned into geometry. That night, the men sleep on damp grass beside their spears. They know what waits in the morning, a sea of horses and armor. They also know they've been taught how to make the ground fight with them. So when dawn breaks and a single English knight lowers his lance to end a war with one charge, the schiltrons stand, calm, braced and ready. Because Bruce's greatest weapon isn't iron or prayer, it's rhythm. And rhythm doesn't break.
Every campaign has a spark, a single moment where pride outruns strategy. At Bannockburn, that spark has a name, Henry de Bohun, a knight of high birth, nephew to the Earl of Hereford, a man who believes armor and lineage make him unstoppable. It's the eve of battle, June 23rd, 1314. The English vanguard has reached the edge of the new park, pushing towards Stirling Castle. They expect the Scots to scatter. They see Bruce's men forming up, not ragged rebels, but ordered ranks, steady in the rain. Still, confidence hangs thick in English throats. They've crushed worse odds before. Then it happens. Robert the Bruce, the Scottish king himself, rides forward on a small horse, lightly armored, inspecting the ground. No escort, no flourish, just the crown, the field, and the mist. From across the way, Henry de Bohun spots him, the king, alone. One clean charge, and the war ends in a heartbeat. You can almost hear the thought forming. One strike, one legend. He lowers his lance, spurs his war horse, and thunders forward. The Scots see it, the English see it. An army's worth of breath holds in a single moment. The ground shakes, the lance draws straight, the distance collapses. At the last instant, Bruce turns his mount aside. De Bohun's lance hisses past empty air. And then, one motion, calm as thought, Bruce rises in the stirrups and brings his axe down. The blow lands clean, steel meets skull, the helmet splits. De Bohun drops lifeless, his own momentum carrying him to the dirt. The king's axe shatters from the force. He looks down at the ruin he's made and rides on. Then comes the sound, not a roar, but an eruption. The Scottish line explodes in cheers. The impossible has just happened in front of them. Their king has met a charging knight and won. No miracles, no banners, just nerve, skill, and a perfect read of distance. What Bruce wins here isn't ground, it's belief. Morale becomes a weapon. Every archer, every pikeman, every weary soldier sees proof that the plan, their discipline, their patience, can survive contact with steel. The English don't take long to test the line, so Robert Clifford pushes around the flank, hoping to find a weak point. But Thomas Randolph, Bruce's nephew, sees the move and reacts fast. He wields his schiltron, that walking hedge of spears, to meet the charge. The pikes dip, the horses hit, and the English flank meets the same lesson de Bohun just learned. Ground and drill beat pride and weight. No gaps, no panic, just the rhythm of boots, the hiss of breath, and the dull shock of hooves dying on steel. Randolph's men hold, then push, one careful step at a time. The cavalry breaks, the flank holds, the plan breathes. By dusk, both sides pull back.
The English still have numbers but no momentum. The Scots have fewer men, but every one of them now knows something crucial. Their king can kill, their line can hold. The ground is theirs. Day 1 ends in rain and smoke. Fires burn on both sides, but only one camp feels the field leaning its way. June 24th, 1314. The second day. Mist coils over the Bannockburn like breath from a waiting mouth. The English army stirs, hungry, wet, and angry. They outnumber the Scots 3-1, but numbers mean nothing when you're trapped inside your own ranks. At first light, the English vanguard moves. Knights, archers, infantry, banners shaking out in the fog. They expect to deploy across open ground. Instead, they meet a bottleneck. The burn, the pits, the soft earth, all the invisible traps Bruce taught the land to hide, are waiting. Horses slip, lances tilt off rhythm, lines fold in on themselves. What was a march becomes a press. 20,000 men trying to fit through a space meant for two. The Scots stand silent until the distance closes. Then, drums, a single low beat. Step, step, step. The schiltrons begin to move. Imagine a wall of pikes glinting through the mist, shifting forward in perfect time. The sound is like rain on metal, steady, alive, unbroken. They don't sprint, they grind. The English archers try to set their line, but the terrain smothers their range. They can't see past their own knights. Then comes Bruce's counter. Sir Robert Keith, commanding light cavalry, charges their flank. Hooves thunder through the bowmen's ranks, scattering men and snapping bowstrings. The one weapon that could thin the Scottish pikes is gone. Now the knights have no shield of arrows, only mud and panic. They drive their horses forward, but the charge breaks on contact. Hooves hit caltrops, armor jams in the pits. Momentum bleeds away. One horse stumbles, then another. Fallen bodies pile, turning the charge into a wall of wreckage. At the burn, the crush becomes a nightmare. The rear pushes the front, thinking victory lies ahead, but the front has nowhere to go. Men slip, vanish under hooves, and drown in the shallow water. The weight of thousands folds in on itself. Chroniclers speak of knights gasping for air, their armor turning to anchors, of horses screaming, trapped under fallen riders, of banners sinking into the mud. No one commands this anymore. The field itself has taken over. From the ridge, Bruce sees it happen. The English formation collapses into itself, a giant made of armor and pride, drowning in the very stream it tried to cross. He signals the push. The schiltrons advance one last time. Step, press, hold. The wall of pikes drives the English into the burn and closes the trap completely. Edward II watches his army die by inches. He tries to rally them, but commands vanish in the noise. Even his own guards begin to fall back. The king turns, not to lead, but to survive. He flees towards Stirling, chased by shame and the sound of his banners falling behind him. By midday, it's done. The largest English host ever to march into Scotland has been broken. Not by size, not by miracle, but by geometry. A stream, a marsh, a hill, and a king who knew how to read them. When the echoes fade, what's left isn't triumph, it's silence. A silence that smells of rain, iron, and smoke. A silence that means the world has changed. The Scottish soldiers stand trembling, soaked to the bone, not cheering, just breathing. They know what they've done, not just survived, but rewritten the rules of war. Bannockburn wasn't about miracles or destiny. It was discipline, terrain, and nerve. Peasants with pikes broke nobles in armor. A king on foot outthought one on a horse. A stream and a patch of marsh turned empire into echo. The victory doesn't end the war, but it breaks its spine. In years to come, England will have to negotiate, not command. And when that treaty finally comes, it won't be born in a hall or a court, but here, in the mud of Bannockburn. Think about what it means. 6,000 men and a field of mud changed how Europe fought. From that day, armies learned that courage without order dies, and numbers without ground mean nothing. Robert the Bruce didn't win with might. He won with placement, patience, and preparation. Proof that true power isn't loud, it's deliberate, it's exact, it's earned. If this story shifted how you see medieval war, subscribe, share, and join us next time as we trace how the echo of this muddy victory reshaped the next great field, where thunder, gunpowder, and pike would decide who truly owns the ground when hooves start to roll.